name is Beck and welcome to a two-parter video. This is going to cover a little bit of a Q&A first and then it will jump into the Booktube Oldie Tag. So without further ado, I'll get into the questions and then I'll go into the tag afterwards. Favourite contemporary novel? Does that mean this year or overall or in general? I might go for one this year. I really enjoyed Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert because the portrayal of the characters and the tension and the drama in the story was very grounded and it wasn't manipulative or toxic, and I like that stance in a romance book. So definitely Chloe Brown, and Talia Hibbert is an author that I'm now keeping an eye on because I would like to try more of her work. What series are you most anticipating finishing, which can include not yet published books? I'm looking forward to finishing the new Brandon Sanderson series, so The Lost Metal, and that's out in November. But I feel like that's kind of a cheat answer given how much I talk about Brandon Sanderson on here. So I'm going to go with a different answer, and that is the Red Rising saga. I recently finished the Red Rising trilogy, and I've got Iron Gold and Dark Age on that list as well to reread. And then after that, I don't know when the next book is coming out, but I think it's 2023. So that is a series that I'm very much looking forward to finishing, unless the next book is going to be part of a quartet. I'm pretty confident it's a trilogy though. Hopefully I love Iron Gold and Dark Age, but I've done a whole spoiler chat of the first 3 books if you'd like to go and check it out. What are your dream travel destinations, both real and in fantasy? Honestly, a lot of fantasy books have a lot of gore and violence and morally grey characters, and I think I'd just die on chapter 1 or even page 1, you know? So I don't think I would like to necessarily go anywhere in a fantasy book because that's my primary genre, and I have no interest in going to space because space kind of freaks me out. So literally, I would very much like to visit Japan again. I adore Japan so much. I've already been twice. I love going there and snowboarding and exploring and eating all the food. And I love the hot springs as well. They're incredible. So a trip back to Japan would be amazing. But I'd also really like to go to Italy and Rome and Europe and the UK and Scotland. So no pressure on my bank account. Also, I'd like to go to New Zealand, which is quite close to Australia, but I just haven't made it out there yet because it looks absolutely stunning. So I have a lot of destinations that I would like to travel to. Is there an author who used to be an auto-buy author but isn't anymore? So auto-buy author is an author that you automatically pre-order, automatically buy all of their catalogue, all of their backlist. For me, it used to be Jay Kristoff, and I've since fallen off the bandwagon with enjoying his work. I've given 3 or 4 of his books a 2 stars, so I'm not really a fan of him anymore, and I found he just oversaturates and overmarkets a lot of his work very, very early, and he just garners a lot of unnecessary hype to the point where it got really annoying. And so I kind of fell into that with a bit of trepidation about Empire of the Vampire, and I ended up not liking that book at all. Kind of hated it, did a vlog about it, no regrets, but also kind of regret. So I didn't like it. I'm not going to continue his work. I've unfollowed him. I'm not interested. I've also unfollowed Amy Kaufman, and they wrote the Illuminae files together. I just have zero interest in both of them now, and maybe that's because I'm almost 30, or maybe that's just because they've done their dash. I'm not really sure. I don't buy them anymore, so I'm not interested in them. Is there a book that you hate and your partner loves, but vice versa? I know there's a book that I hate but he loves, and that would be the Prince of Thorns series. I DNF'd that series. I didn't read book 3. I didn't like Jorg, but Dave loved it because it was so dark and different. So is there a series like that for me? I genuinely can't think of one. I thought it might be Heartstopper because Dave's not really into teen kind of rom-com-y stuff, but he's read the volumes of Heartstopper and he loves it so much just because the tone is very grounded and the characters are very realistic and communicative, and a lot of the friendship interactions in it he can relate to as well from his teenage years. They just have that coziness and that vibe of them that is very youthful, and so there's an element of relatability there no matter who you are when you're reading it. So I thought Heartstopper would be the one, but it's not. He loves that series. Not so much the Netflix show, but the books, yes. So I don't love Prince of Thorns. He loves Heartstopper. I think that's all I can think of. What book do you wish you could read again for the first time? Oof, that's really hard. Can I say Heartstopper again? At this point, I'm just a broken Heartstopper record. I would really love to read the last book of the Brent Weeks series for the Lightbringer books again, because when I was listening to that, I was doing a dead-end temp job to pay bills at the time, and I was just standing all day for 8 hours scanning dusty paperwork because this whole office had decided that they didn't need to do their archiving, and so they left it all for years and years, and so they hired a temp agent to come out and do it all for them. So I just turned over all the audiobooks for a while. So that's when I listened to pretty much all of the Lightbringer series on audiobook, and I loved Simon Vance's narration of them. But I remember listening to the last book and having my jaw hang open because the plot twists and how much I laughed and how much I felt reading that book and how much I didn't see coming. It was just incredible. So I would love to reread that. Maybe I will reread that series eventually because there's a lot of detail in it that I don't remember, obviously, because they're so big. But I think the last book in that series I would love to read again for the first time because it was just encapsulating. Fantasy tropes you hate. Miscommunication? Love triangle? People might say the chosen one if they're reading a lot of fantasy, but I like the chosen one trope as long as it's done well. That's the thing. A lot of tropes can be done well, but still I think I'd hate the love triangle and the miscommunication trope. So those are the only ones I can really think of. I did a whole video on a bunch of tropes, at least recently, that I've clocked that I don't like, so I will link that below and in the cards for you. What is something you never thought you'd do on BookTube when you first started, but you have? I did a live show with Steph from Novelty Corner, which was very terrifying, and I have not gone back and rewatched it, even though they're reading sprints and they're very rewatchable, because at one point I forgot to turn my microphone back on and I'm just too embarrassed to go back and watch it. But the point stands, I did it. And I'm happy that I did it. In the future, I would love to have people on the channel and interview them, but my living situation really prevents me from doing that because I don't really have the space or the resources or the time in order to schedule things like that. So in the future, I'm looking forward to having guests and having chats and having more longer extended talks, especially having Dave on the channel as well. We've done a Dresden talk in the past with spoilers, and we've done a drawing challenge video together. And so I'd like to do more collaborations with him because he's got more of a lens coming from a film background and I've got more of a lens coming from a writing and analysis background. So to have two lenses like that from creative angles coming to different pieces of content, I think it would be awesome to dissect things together, but I haven't really pursued that yet because the space, you can't tell on here, but I'm sitting on the floor right now, the bed's right next to me, and I'm filming when there's nobody home because I've just rushed here from work. So I don't really have a lot of time and space to do the ideas that I've got brewing, but when I've got a bigger space, when we've moved out into our own home, it's going to happen. So a live show is something that I'd never thought I'd do, and author interviews and interviews with guests in general are also things that I never thought I'd do, but I probably will do in the future. So keep your eyes open. Least read genre would definitely be memoirs and historical fiction and autobiography. Not my thing. They just feel dry to me. They're very boring. I like having a character with a particular style and voice, and I find rating and reading memoirs and stories about true events, they don't have the same character, tone, and voice to them that fiction does, and that's naturally why I gravitate towards fiction. I just don't really like the more toneless classical work either. Not necessarily to say that, oh, the book is toneless and it's bad, but it's just not my taste. I know other people love classics and that's why they exist and they're so popular and hyped up. I don't like them, so I don't go for them. So my least read genre will definitely be classics and historical fiction and non-fiction. Even though that's not a genre, it's a category, but moving right past that. Okay, now we're on to the tag, and it has about 7 questions. The first one is, how long have you been part of the BookTube community? And I've been part of the community actively making videos for about 3 years, but I think I've been part of the community leaving comments and subscribing to people for like 10 years, because I joined when I just started university, and that's when I was about 18. So now I'm 29. So yeah, it's definitely been a long while. I remember first subscribing to Reagan from Peruse Project. So it has been a little bit of a while, and I went out and bought a ton of stuff based on recommendations when I didn't know my reading taste. So that was a time when I ended up with over 200 unread books. But I've since got my reading number right down again. So I've got things semi under control now. Question number 2 is, what was your biggest misconception before starting BookTube? My biggest misconception was that everyone does their videos perfectly. No, that does not happen at all. Also, don't be afraid to show off your errors and mistakes and when you stop and start. It makes you more personable and humanized. I thought I have to say everything in the first take, I can't stuff anything up. No, I stuff up all the time. Sometimes I even stuff up saying hello and I have to do like 4 different intros because my eyes are too wide or my lip gets stuck on my braces or something stupid. So editing is your best friend when it comes to making videos. Make sure you have a clear image, make sure your sound is okay, and make sure you just talk and it doesn't matter if you mess up because you'll fix it all in editing and it's fine. And whatever you don't like, you can cut out. So my biggest misconception was that I had to make things look perfect without even doing any editing. I had to film it perfectly. No, that's not true at all. Question number 3 is, how do you think BookTube has changed since you first started? When I first started, there weren't many live shows, but now when I'm going through all of my subscriptions and stuff, I find that there are longer form vlogs, sometimes like 30 or 40 minutes long, and there are also a lot of live streams and live shows of reading sprints, and that wasn't really a thing when I started. So longer videos are a thing that people with bigger channels generally do, and whenever I post a reading vlog, it doesn't get the views because I've got a smaller channel. So I think it also depends because I mostly follow bigger channels, so I don't know necessarily if my opinion covers a lot of content, but I guess it also depends on who you subscribe to. I do really like watching longer vlogs, but at the same time, because I work full time, I film content and I also read, it is good to have vlogs, in my opinion, that are about 15 minutes long because I can do 15 minutes. That's me eating a quick meal or having a coffee and a snack or a break from something or waiting until one of my videos exports before I upload it to YouTube. So 15 minutes is a lot more doable to me, but I've noticed a lot more longer vlogs coming up and I like longer vlogs. And I've also noticed a resurgence in reviews. I've seen a lot more reviews come back. Whereas when I first started watching BookTube, I saw a lot of reviews and they kind of petered off for a little bit and now they're coming back. At least with the channels I watch, I like reviews. Reviews kind of act like discovery videos. I often get comments on reviews that I've posted a year or 2 years ago and people are just discovering my channel because they've only just read that book even though it's been out for a while. So it's cool to have on my channel as well, even though initially they might not get the views that I want them to. I make content ultimately because I enjoy making it, not because it'll necessarily get the views, but when the two things align, that's always really nice. Question number 4 is, what is your favorite BookTube memory? And when I first started my channel and I had like 200 subscribers, maybe under that actually, I shared my Brandon Sanderson reading guide and that took off really quickly because Brandon Sanderson retweeted it. So that is one of the highlights of my BookTube, I guess, career, not really career, but career hobby. So that was pretty cool. And then just the smaller moments as well. I get comments here and there of people saying, oh, I wouldn't have found this book if you hadn't have talked about it, or I didn't realize this book was in existence and I read it and it's one of my new favorites. And I love comments like that because I'm always looking for new favorite books. And if I can share my favorites and simultaneously provide other people with new favorites, that's what I'm here for. We're here to talk about books. We're here to talk about favorites. We're here to discuss and analyze things as well. And I love when I get a comment as well of, I hated this book for all of the reasons you loved it, and vice versa. That is why reading is so subjective. I love getting comments like that. Not, oh, you hated that book, so I hated you. No, a little bit more grey than that. A little bit more of a discussion than that. I love getting massive comments, kind of like essays, commenting on different points of my video and going, oh, you hated X and Y, but I loved Z and A, all of these things. So I get those sometimes. They wouldn't necessarily be like my bookish memory because nothing singularly stands out, but I love those moments of little bits of recognition. It's really just rewarding to see, especially because I do this because it's my hobby and I like to connect with readers. So it's just gratifying. Question number 5 is, what are some books that you were introduced to because of BookTube? One of mine would be Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, which is an urban fantasy book. Hadn't heard of it before I started watching BookTube. I read it and it turned out to be 5 stars. I also wouldn't have heard about Heartstopper, the comic by Alice Oseman, also 5-star books. And I also wouldn't have heard about Dresden if I hadn't have watched BookTube as well. So I found a lot of new favorites from watching BookTube, which I'm super grateful for. So not only have I told people about my favorites, I've also experienced theirs, which is just a nice exchange. Question number 6 is, what is something that frustrates you about BookTube? Something that frustrates me is people have like 20-minute long videos with 4 minutes of relevance. Don't fluff around, just get to the point. I don't want to skip through all of your video. I just want to know what you think straight away. So something like that where it's a review and it doesn't get to the point or the synopsis straight away. There's a whole lot of fluff first. cut it out. You can edit your own videos, cut it out. I cut out so much of my waffle and it just repeats the same thing over and over. Make it more succinct. But at the same time, it's also other people's videos. They can do what they want. But I've noticed that sometimes when I watch reviews, some of it would just be fluff and it's not necessary. Or there are just too many montages in a reading vlog and I'm like, I don't care. So I often skip over montages and stuff if they're too long. If they're like a short burst of a couple of clips, great. If they're like a minute long, don't care. I just don't care. And then finally, question 7 is, what is your hope for the future of BookTube? Always that more people join, because making videos has been so gratifying. It was terrifying to start off with because sitting down and talking to a camera when you're by yourself is more terrifying than it should be. But I'm really happy that I did it. I'm happy every day that I did it. And I'm happy for meeting people and talking about books every day and thinking about books every day. Having this channel helps keep me accountable and motivates me simultaneously to read more. And even though it's my hobby, sometimes you do need a little bit of a push to get out of that feeling of tiredness or mental funk when you're feeling tired after work or something. So it's just nice to be able to read and then know that you've got a platform to talk about something. So I would encourage people to start a BookTube channel because they are so much fun. But that is my Q&A. That is my BookTube oldie tag. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down in the comments below and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.